G'day divers and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a very special cave dive for you. At the start of the week I was privileged enough to be the very first diver to get back in the water at the Three Sisters Cave near Mt Gambier in South Australia. Now this site had been closed for quite a few years due to safety concerns, but through the hard work of some dedicated people and the support of the local government agencies, they have moved the entry, made it safer, come up with rules and regulations around how to get in, and we have regained access to this amazing site. It is really good to see a site getting reopened, and I thank anybody and everybody that had any involvement whatsoever in getting this site reopened. Now this site has been known about for quite some time. It was originally called the Three Sisters because it had three small openings, and we know it was at least first documented right back in 1933 by a scientist and explorer, Norman B. Tyndale. So these days there's only one hole left. It's man-made now as far as the pipe to get in, and there's enough room just for one diver to go down. Now don't bother going out and having a look because there's a grate locked on it at any time when the divers aren't there, and you need to be an advanced cave diver and make a booking to be able to get the key to be able to access the cave. Apart from that, even if the lid's not on it, you can't actually see anything but darkness because it's a very long way down to the bottom of the cave. So that from that entry to the top of the rock pile is about 18 meters, which is 60 feet, or the same as a 6-story building, which is actually considered almost a high-rise building. So it's a long way down to the rock pile. As I said, the descent into the cave is 18 meters or 60 feet, so it's a long way, a lot easier on the winch. I can't imagine how much fun it must have been climbing in and out using wire ladders prior to winches. They can have that, and probably the reason why this cave didn't get dived very often. So once you drop down the 18 meters on top of the mound, you have a very large cave, especially for Mt Gambier. It's got more of that feel of being out on the Nullarbor, and it's very spectacular in there. There was some speleotherms, I hope I'm saying that correctly, like some flow rock on the side. I'll put some images up of that. You've got all the roots coming through from all the trees from above, and it's quite a large area. Once you're at the top of the rock pile and you've got down there, you need to then carry your tanks down to the water's edge. It's not too bad, but obviously in a humid cave already with your dry suit on, it was a bit of a workout. There is a lot of rubbish in there because obviously over the years people have thrown things in there. There's loads and loads of bones. If it was a movie, you'd be thinking there was a dragon waiting. I don't know what it is, whether or not the farmers were using it as a dumping site or the abattoir, but there is a lot of bones inside this cave. No doubt some of them are also animals that have fallen in, because obviously anything that's going to fall at 60 feet or 18 meters is not going to survive. Now the dive starts at a small pool at the bottom of the rock pile. It's easy enough to get in, it's crystal clear, but it is an advanced cave site and it is side mount only. How the guys in the early days got through that in back mount, I don't know. And the reason it's an advanced site is because it pretty much starts with a long restriction, a flattener. It's quite a few meters long. It's about 30 centimeters, maybe 40 centimeters high. It is got a bit of width to it. But the trickiest part really is it's quite vertical. In the video you can't really see it, but it is quite steep. So you're going head first down this slab of rock. Now inside mount, it's pretty easy for an advanced cave diver. We didn't have any trouble getting through it. It was interesting to know, since nobody had been through it in a number of years, whether anything was going to have moved or how silty it was going to be. There was a bit of silt since obviously hasn't had any divers through it, but it wasn't bad at all given how tight it was. But it's not bad, not on side mount and not for an advanced cave diver. As long as you can fit through, you're going to get through on side mount. And the fixed line's still in there, so we just followed the fixed line down and it peters out at the bottom. So once you go through the restriction, it pops out into a nice big ballroom. It's crystal clear, it's quite a big room, it's much bigger than I was expecting it to be. The map that they have of the site's not quite right in my opinion, because that room at the bottom is there, but then there's another room after it. It's not really until into that second room that you start to hit, it's around 32, 33 meters. Now, whether or not it goes off anywhere, we really didn't want to look around too much. simply because there was other divers that were going to get to enjoy that cave that day, and we didn't want to silt it up too much since we were the lucky first to get to go through it. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly where the cave is because you can't see anything anyway, and it's a dangerous place to get to. We have procedures in place to make it safe, but it's on a blind corner, and I don't want you pulling up and trying to have a look at it because it's too dangerous. You're not going to see anything. It is literally a pipe with a plate over the top, and that plate is locked in place. You can't get in without a key, and even if you could get the plate off, all you're going to see is a black hole. It's 18 meters deep, and there's no lights in there, there's no ladder down, so there's no access. If you want to be able to get into it, the easy thing to do is to go to the Cave Divers Association of Australia's website, look up some instructors, find out what you need to do, and get into cave diving. I highly recommend it. I love cave diving. There is very few things you can do in this world anymore where you can say that you're going somewhere where only a handful of people have been. For me, getting to dive this site, now I know it's been known about a long time and there's been plenty of divers going it before, but I can guarantee you there's been a lot less people go into this cave than climbed Mount Everest. You know, and we're talking maybe hundreds of people over decades have maybe dived this site, and there hasn't been anybody in there in years, and I get to be the first person in there. And there is no doubt loads of caves that we haven't even found yet. So there are very few places on this planet that you can be one of those few people. So if you have got any sense of exploration in you and you like diving, cave diving is a thing to do. So have a look. I'll put the link in the description. Have a look at what you need to do to get into cave diving. The first level basic cave is nice and easy, and there's some spectacular basic caves in Mt Gambier. Things like the famous Kilsby sinkhole. If you want, check out my videos. There's a video on Kilsby's. It's absolutely spectacular, and you can do those sorts of dives with, you know, very limited overhead environments. You certainly need to build up to doing things like this site where you've got flatteners and restrictions in them. Well, I hope you liked the video on the Three Sisters Cave in Mt Gambier. I certainly enjoyed getting into it, and a big thanks to everybody that was involved in getting this cave reopened. For those of you who are interested in the setup I used, this is exactly what I used. It was a couple of cheap eBay lights, a GoPro Hero 11, and a couple of floats just to take a bit of the weight off underwater because it gets quite heavy. This doesn't make it neutral at all, but I don't want it any bigger, especially when I'm going through restrictions, and it just takes a little bit of the weight off. About the only difference is my settings are quite a bit different when I'm diving in a cave. I will drop it to 4K instead of 5.3K and 30 frames per second instead of 60. The reason being, if you drop back to 4K 30, there's a lot less pressure on the processor. It also has noise reduction at 4K 30 that it doesn't have at 5.3K 60, and light is our biggest issue. So there's no marine life. I'm not half speeding the footage. I want to drop that frame rate back to get as much light in. I also crank up my ISO to 800 instead of 400. That's as far as I'm happy to take it. If you're happy to take your ISO to 1600, that's you. I hate 1600 ISO on a GoPro. I think it's horrible and unusable, and I still try to keep the lights up to not let it drop back to 800 either. Now, I'm going to do a video on just filming in caves. There are quite a few techniques that I use to try and get rid of backscatter, especially when my lights are so close. I mean, obviously, if I had preference, I would have my lights further out and I'd have more flotation on it. But I really want to keep the rig very small when I'm doing cave diving because it's, you know, I'm still there to go cave diving, not to be lugging around a massive camera. That's why I got into small cameras as it was. But there are techniques that you can use. For example, you'll see that I'm often more of a 45 degree to the diver in front. Now, obviously, if you want the clearest video, you want to be at the front. But I find that unless you've got a diver in the shot, it really is quite boring. So I want a diver in the shot. Now, if I'm right behind that diver, I'm going to be getting all the scatter that's coming off the ceiling from their bubbles. So when possible, I'll cut out into a 45 degree angle to get out of that scatter line to get that clear shot. So that's one way I keep it clear. The other way you keep it clear is to have buddies that know how to use fin control. Well, I hope you liked that video. So until next time, keep blowing bubbles, and don't forget, the deeper you go, the further you get away from all those idiots.